Hi all, my name is Seetal and welcome back to my channel. I know I've been missing for a very long time. I've kind of been busy because I've started two new brands. One is petitemonk.com.au and the other one is CosmicNun.com. I'll put a link to both brands down below. Petite Monk is basically a brand where I sell baby diaper bags in a minimal sense. Design them myself and then I get them made and manufactured ethically, and the bags are minimal and they speak to minimalist parents. Now, they're not for every parent, but if you are a minimalist and you want to kind of have a look or have a browse, then please, by all means, we do ship worldwide. Now, moving on to CosmicNun. Cosmic because everything, cosmic means big, and nun means everything is kind of dressed modestly. So I like to dress in really big clothes, a little bit lots of volume and kind of modest, not exactly very sexy. In CosmicNun, I make my own dress patterns and then I sell them online. So I've been doing this for a while now, but I thought I'd share it with you and come back on YouTube. There have been a few comments that I haven't been around for a long time. So since I like sewing, I thought, well, I might as well show you some of the patterns that I've made and show you, do some sew-alongs. So in this video, we're going to do a sew-along of one of my favorite patterns, which is the Juhi UnWrap dress pattern. It's the dress that I'm wearing right now. This one's a really simple pattern and I'm using a linen fabric for it. You can use cotton because a lot of my patterns go really well with cotton fabric because I find sewing with cotton just so much easier. So of course, before you start any sewing projects, do wash your fabric and put it out for hanging. Without further ado, let's get started with the sew-along project. And this is the fabric that I used. It's a grey linen. It was washed and dried prior to me starting, and then I cut two front bodice pieces which are mirror images to one another, one back bodice which is cut on the fold, two sleeves which has a back and a front, two front skirt pieces, and one large back skirt piece. I made my own bias tape. You could use a ready-made one bought from the store, and we will need 4 ties for this project. Before we get started, serge the arm pieces and the armholes. And then we start with sewing the shoulder pieces or shoulder lines, right sides facing one another, followed by serging the ends or doing a zigzag stitch to prevent fraying, and then flip it over to do a top stitch while keeping the excess seam towards the back bodice. And this is how it should look like. As for sewing the sleeves on right sides together, I find it easier to pin the midpoint of the sleeve onto the shoulder seam and then pinning along either side, either the front or the back of the arm, and then sewing from the tip of the shoulder down to the armpit, or like the point of where the armpit is, and repeating the same for the other side of the shoulder. I find it easy to do make gathers by doing 2 rows of basting stitch. Basting stitch means going up to the highest stitch length, and then pulling the top 2 threads or the bottom 2 threads, it doesn't matter, just the 2 threads on in the opposite direction as to which direction you start gathering the fabric. And this process takes very long. Take your time to do it. Pieces that you will need together is the back skirt piece as well as the front skirt piece. gather it enough so it matches the back bodies or the front bodies, and then do a straight stitch over that. And then after that, you've got to remove the excess basting stitch before serging or doing a zigzag stitch to prevent fraying. And once you've done a zigzag stitch, keep the excess seam allowance facing upwards and then turn it around to do a stay stitch right in the ditch. This is so it prevents any forming of bulk and the skirt lies nice and tidy. I guess the gathers would just lay nicer, and it will also finish your garment more professionally. And then just repeat the process for the front two bodice pieces. As for the skirts, gather the skirts, make it fit on the front bodice piece, start pinning from the middle out, and then do a straight stitch over it again. Remove the basting stitches, do a zigzag or a serger, or run it through the serger to prevent any fraying, and then repeat the same for the other bodice piece. So there are two front bodice pieces and they both have a gathered skirt each. And now that we're almost done, we're going to put the skirt together, right sides facing, wrong sides facing out or facing you, and then you're going to start sewing just a straight stitch from the sleeves all the way through the armpits, the gathered skirt. And I always go through just a double time over the armpit and over the skirt pieces, if that makes sense, just to kind of strengthen the bond between the bulk of the fabric together. And then just sew a straight stitch all the way down till the end of the skirt, and it's that easy. You've got repeat it for the other side and you've got a dress already. And don't forget to run it through the serger or do a zigzag stitch to prevent fraying. The sewing instructions will tell you to insert 2 ties before you do the zigzag stitch or sew the side seams together. This is so that we have 2 ties, one in the inside of the dress as shown here and one on the outside of the dress, so that we can tie the dress together and when we wrap them. And before we sew on the bias tape, which is the last step, we will also have to attach 2 ties, as I'm going to do here. Pin them right sides facing the dress, just at the point where the bodice piece meets the skirt, just as shown here. Once you start sewing the bias tape from one corner of the skirt, as I'm doing here, the bias tape will kind of just hide the excess seam allowance of the tie really nicely. So when I sew a bias tape, I usually sew it right sides facing the dress or the whatever you're sewing onto the bias tape onto, and I just pin the starting maybe just 2 or 3 pins, and then after that I go ahead and just sew a straight line along the first fold line of the bias tape, and that might be about 3/8 of an inch. Some bias tape depends on the bias tape that you're using, it might be bigger, might be smaller. And then all you do is sew a straight line all the way from one corner of the skirt piece or the bottom of the skirt, and all the way through the neckline and down the other side of the bodice piece, down the skirt and down the other end. And then we're going to cut off all the excess seam. This is to prevent any bulk, but be really careful on this step when you're doing this step, because you don't want to cut through the stitch that you've actually done. And just like that, now you will have something that looks kind of like this, unfinished bias tape. So what you're going to do is fold the bias tape in on itself 2 times, that would bring the bias tape to the back of the dress, or the the wrong side of it, and then you're gonna sew a straight stitch right through that or on top of that, which will make which will kind of neaten up your neckline without using facing and a lot of fabric. Also, just wrap the end piece in on itself, on the bias tape in on itself, before wrapping the bias tape around the dress, so that you kind of neaten the corner. But if you don't do that, that's okay, don't worry about it, because when you go through the last step of hemming the dress, the raw piece of the bias tape gets hidden anyways. And just like that, we've come to the last step, which is to hem the bottom of the dress as well as the sleeves. And I hem it both the same way. Just fold the sleeves around, fold the hem around twice in on itself, around at 5/8 of an inch, or you could do it an inch or more if you wanted the dress to be longer, or less if you wanted the dress to be shorter. But I like to have a seam allowance done where it's folded 5/8 of an inch twice in on itself. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching till the end. If you did like it, do subscribe down below and leave me a like or a comment. I would love to know what you think, and all the pattern links and everything is in the description box below. You'll find that there. And also, if you subscribe to my newsletter on CosmicNun.com, I will release a free pattern every now and then, and that will be sent directly to your inbox. Until then, I will see you again soon. Bye.